Park Do-hoon dropped his tools and ran from the engine room. Red lights flashed in the narrow corridors of the horizon's edge. He knew that sound. Every spacer knew that sound. It meant something bad was coming. He reached the bridge in 30 seconds. Captain Lee Taewon stood at the main viewport, his face hard as stone. Kim Yuna was already at the communications panel, her fingers moving fast across the controls. "What is it?" Do-hoon asked. Taewon pointed at the viewport. "Look!" Do-hoon looked. His stomach dropped. A Sithari warship hung in space before them. It was massive, at least 50 times the size of their small cargo vessel. Its hull was black and smooth, shaped like a blade. Blue lights pulsed along its surface like veins carrying cold blood. "They appeared from nowhere," Taewon said. "No warning, no signal. They just arrived." Yuna turned from her panel. "They're hailing us." "Put it through," Taewon said. The screen flickered. A Sithari face appeared. It was humanoid but wrong in ways that made Do-hoon's skin crawl. The skin was pale gray, almost white. The eyes were large and completely black, like holes in the face. The Sithari had no hair, no eyebrows, no expression at all. "Human vessel," the Sithari said. Its voice was flat and cold. "You have entered Dominion space. You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in immediate destruction." The screen went dark. Taewon stood silent for a long moment. Do-hoon could see him thinking, calculating, looking for a way out, but there was no way out. The Sithari ship could destroy them in seconds. "Power down the engines," Taewon said quietly. "Captain," Yuna started. "Do it." Taewon's voice was firm, but tired. "We have 7 people on this ship. I won't get them killed for pride." Do-hoon moved to help Yuna with the shutdown sequence. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. Everyone knew about the Sithari. They had conquered half the galaxy. They believed they were perfect, the highest form of life. They looked at other species the way humans looked at insects. The Sithari did not take prisoners. They had no use for lesser beings. So why were they boarding instead of shooting? The docking clamps connected with a heavy thud that shook the whole ship. Do-hoon felt it in his bones. He gathered with the rest of the crew in the main cargo hold. 7 people total. Taewon, Yuna, himself, and 4 others. Engineers, a pilot, a medical officer, good people, scared people. The airlock opened with a hiss. Sithari soldiers entered in perfect formation. They moved like machines, every step exactly the same length, every turn exactly the same angle. They wore armor that looked grown rather than built, black and organic. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. At the front walked their commander. He was taller than the others, his armor marked with silver lines. He stopped before Captain Taewon and studied him with those empty black eyes. "I am Commander Raithal," he said. "You and your crew are now prisoners of the Sithari Dominion. You will be transported to the flagship throne of eternity for processing." "Processing?" Taewon asked. "What does that mean?" Raithal tilted his head slightly. It was the only movement he made. "It means your fate will be decided by Queen Valith. Until then, you will comply with all instructions. Failure to comply will result in termination." He said it simply, like he was reading from a manual. Like killing them would mean nothing at all. Yuna stepped forward. She spoke in the Sithari language, her pronunciation careful and clear. Do-hoon knew she had studied their culture for years. She was trying to establish communication, show respect, find common ground. Raithal looked at her for a moment. Then he turned away without responding. "Move them," he ordered his soldiers. The Sithari pushed the crew forward, not roughly but firmly, like herding animals. Do-hoon walked with his hands raised slightly, watching everything. He noticed how the soldiers never spoke to each other. They didn't need to. They moved as one unit, one mind. They were taken through a connecting tunnel to the Sithari ship. The difference was immediate. The Horizon's Edge was old, worn, human. The Sithari vessel was something else entirely. The walls were smooth and seamless, glowing with soft blue light. The air was cold and clean, with no smell at all. It felt less like a ship and more like the inside of a machine, or a tomb. They walked for what felt like hours through endless corridors. Do-hun tried to memorize the route, but every hallway looked the same. Finally, they reached a large chamber filled with Sithari soldiers and crew. Hundreds of them, all moving with that same mechanical precision. And beyond them, through a massive viewport, Do-hun saw their destination, the Throne of Eternity. It was the largest ship he had ever seen. It made the warship look small. It was shaped like a crown, with great spires reaching up into space. Lights moved across its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. "That's the Queen's flagship," Yuna whispered beside him. "I've only seen pictures. It's 3,000 years old. They say she's never left it." 3,000 years? Do-hun asked. "The Sithari don't die of old age," Yuna said. "They engineered themselves for immortality. The Queen has ruled since before humans had space travel." Do-hun stared at the massive ship. 3,000 years. He couldn't even imagine it. What did that do to a mind? What did that do to a soul? They were loaded onto a transport and taken to the flagship. The Throne of Eternity was even more impressive inside. The ceilings were impossibly high, the halls wide enough for giants. Everything was designed to make visitors feel small and weak. It was working. They were brought to a detention area and separated into cells. The cells were clean and bare, with hard surfaces and dim lighting. Do-hun was placed next to Yuna, a thin energy barrier between them instead of a wall. "Are you okay?" he asked her. She nodded, but her face was pale. "The Sithari haven't taken prisoners in over 100 years, Do-hun. They just destroy threats and move on. Why would they capture us?" Do-hun had been wondering the same thing. A small cargo ship with 7 crew members was no threat to the Dominion. They weren't military. They weren't important. They were nobody. So why were they still alive? "Maybe they want information," he said. "Trade routes, colony locations." "Maybe," Yuna said, but she didn't sound convinced. Do-hun sat down on the cold floor of his cell. He thought about the Sithari soldiers, their empty eyes, their perfect movements. He thought about Queen Valith, ruling for 3,000 years from this ship of death. He thought about his crewmates, scattered somewhere in this prison, waiting for whatever came next. They were cargo now, property. Their lives depended on the decision of a being who had lived longer than human civilization. But Do-hun had survived bad situations before. He had been a combat medic in the border wars. He had seen friends die and enemies fall. He had learned one thing above all else. Survival wasn't about strength or speed or luck. It was about patience. It was about watching. It was about waiting for the right moment. The moment would come. It always did. He just had to stay alive long enough to see it. Through the energy barrier, he met Yuna's eyes. He gave her a small nod. She understood. They would wait. They would watch. And when the time came, they would be ready. The cell was cold. Not uncomfortable, just cold in a way that seeped into the bones. Do-hun had been sitting in the same position for hours, watching the blue glow of the energy barrier, listening to the silence. The Sithari ship made no sound. No hum of engines, no whisper of air systems, nothing. It was like being trapped inside a dead thing. Yuna sat in her own cell, her knees pulled up to her chest. She had stopped trying to talk to the guards. They never responded. They stood at their posts like statues, their black eyes staring at nothing. "Do-hun," Yuna said quietly, "they took the captain an hour ago." "I know." What do you think they're doing to him? Do-hun didn't answer. He didn't want to guess. The guards came for Taewon first because he was the leader. The Sithari were logical. They would start at the top and work their way down, extracting whatever information they wanted. Trade routes, military positions, colony locations. The Dominion was always expanding, always hungry for new territory. Another hour passed. Then the guards came for Do-hun. 2 soldiers deactivated his barrier and gestured for him to move. He stood slowly, keeping his hands visible. They led him through the corridors, past dozens of identical doors, until they reached a room he had not seen before. It was an interrogation chamber, clean and empty except for a single chair in the center. Commander Rathal stood waiting, his silver-marked armor gleaming in the cold light. "Sit," Rathal said. Do-hun sat. Rathal walked in a slow circle around him. "You are Park Do-hun, mechanic, former military medical officer, served in the human border wars." "That's right," Do-hun said. "Your captain has been uncooperative. He refuses to provide useful information about human military assets." "We're a cargo ship. We don't have military information." Rathal stopped in front of him. Those black eyes studied Do-hun's face like he was reading text on a screen. "All humans have value to the Dominion. Even small minds carry pieces of the larger picture. You will tell me what you know about human colony defenses in this sector." "I don't know anything about colony defenses. I fix engines." "You served in your military." "As a medic. I saved lives. I didn't plan attacks." Rathal was silent for a moment. Then he made a small gesture with one hand. Pain exploded across Do-hun's arm. One of the guards had moved forward and cut him with an energy blade. The wound was deep, running from his elbow to his wrist. Blood poured out, hot and red, dripping onto the white floor. Do-hun gritted his teeth. He didn't scream. He had felt worse. In the border wars, he had treated wounds that would make this look like a scratch. He had held men together with his bare hands while they died. He knew pain. Pain was just information. It told you something was wrong. It didn't control you unless you let it. He looked up at Rathal. His jaw was tight, but his eyes were steady. "I don't know anything," he said again. Rathal tilted his head. For a moment, something flickered in those empty eyes. Surprise? Confusion? Do-hun couldn't tell. "Return him to his cell," Rathal said. The guards pulled Do-hun to his feet and marched him back. Blood ran down his arm, leaving a trail on the perfect white floor. When they pushed him back into his cell, Yuna gasped. "Do-hun, your arm!" "It's fine," he said. He sat down against the wall, his back straight. The wound throbbed with every heartbeat. "It's not fine. You're bleeding everywhere." Yuna pressed against the barrier between them, her face tight with worry. "Let me see it." "You can't reach me through the barrier." "Then do something yourself." "You were a medic." She was right. Do-hun tore a strip from the bottom of his shirt and wrapped it around the wound. He pulled it tight with his teeth, making a basic bandage. It wasn't pretty, but it would slow the bleeding. "You need real treatment," Yuna said. "No Sithari doctor is going to help a prisoner." Do-hun leaned his head back against the wall. "It'll be okay." "I've had worse." Yuna stared at him like he was crazy. Maybe he was. But he had learned a long time ago that panic didn't help anything. You dealt with what was in front of you, one problem at a time. Hours passed. Do-hun drifted in and out of a light sleep. The wound hurt, but the bleeding had mostly stopped. He changed the bandage once with another strip from his shirt. When he unwrapped the wound to check it, Yuna made a strange sound. "What?" he asked. "Your arm. Look at it." Do-hun looked. The edges of the cut were pink and slightly raised. The bleeding had stopped completely. The wound was closing. That's fast," Yuna said. "That's really fast." Do-hun shrugged. "I always healed quick. Good genes, I guess." No, Dohun, you don't understand. Yuna's voice was strange, almost frightened. That wound was deep. It should take weeks to heal, days at minimum. It's been 6 hours and it's already closing. So I got lucky. That's not luck. That's not normal. Dohun didn't know what to say. He had always healed fast. Cuts, bruises, even broken bones. His body just fixed itself. He never thought much about it. Humans healed. That's what they did. He wrapped the wound again and tried to sleep. He didn't notice the small drone in the corner of his cell. He didn't see its single eye watching him, recording everything, and he didn't know that the footage was already being sent through the ship's systems, flagged for priority review. In her private laboratory, Healer Novus played the recording for the 3rd time. She watched the human wrap his wound. She watched him sleep. She watched the wound close, hour by hour, the flesh knitting itself back together like magic. This was impossible. The Sithari had perfected their biology millions of years ago. They had removed all flaws, all weaknesses. They did not get sick. They did not grow old. They did not die unless they were killed. But they also did not heal. Not like this. If a Sithari was cut, the wound would stay open until it was treated by a medical officer. Their bodies were perfect but static. They did not change, did not adapt, did not repair. This human's body was repairing itself, without medicine, without technology, just flesh fixing flesh like it was the most natural thing in the world. Novus stood and walked to the door of her lab. She needed to report this immediately. The Queen had to know. She found Queen Valeth in her throne chamber, a vast space of black stone and blue light. Valeth sat on a throne that seemed to grow from the floor itself, her ancient eyes watching the stars through a viewport that stretched across the entire wall. "My queen," Novus said, bowing low, "forgive the intrusion, but you need to see this." She transmitted the footage to the throne's display system. Valeth watched in silence. Her face showed nothing, but Novus had served her for 500 years. She knew how to read the tiny signs. The queen was disturbed. "This is one of the prisoners?" Valeth asked. "Yes, my queen. The one called Park Dohun. And this healing, it is natural? No technology, no medicine?" "None. His body is doing this by itself. I have reviewed his scans. His blood contains cells that attack infection and repair damage. His tissues regenerate at incredible speed. He carries thousands of microorganisms inside him that his body uses rather than destroys." Valeth was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft but sharp. "We removed such chaos from ourselves long ago. We considered it weakness, inefficiency. We became perfect and eternal. Yes, my queen. And now we are dying." Valeth's hands tightened on the arms of her throne. "The plague spreads through our worlds. Our perfect bodies cannot fight it. We have no defense because we have no adaptation." She looked at the frozen image of the human, his bandaged arm, his peaceful face. "Bring him to me," she said. "Not to the commander. To me. I will speak with this creature myself." Novus bowed. "Yes, my queen." As she left to retrieve the prisoner, Novus felt something she had not felt in centuries. Uncertainty. The humans were supposed to be primitive, weak, inferior in every way, but this human's body could do something that the entire Sithari Dominion could not. It could heal itself, and that changed everything. He was pulled from his cell and marched through the ship. This time, they did not take him to the interrogation room. They went deeper into the throne of eternity, through corridors that grew wider and more decorated. The walls here were carved with patterns that seemed to move in the blue light. Old patterns, ancient patterns. They stopped before a door that was 3 times the height of a man. The guards stepped aside, and the door opened slowly, silently. Do-hun walked through. The throne chamber was the largest room he had ever seen. The ceiling disappeared into darkness far above. The floor was black stone, polished like glass, and at the far end, across 100 meters of empty space, sat Queen Valith on her throne. She was old. Do-hun could feel it somehow, even though her face was smooth and perfect like all Sithari. Age radiated from her like heat from a fire. She had lived for 3,000 years. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched stars die. And now, she was watching him. Do-hun walked forward. His footsteps echoed in the vast space. He stopped at a respectful distance from the throne and stood straight. He did not bow. He was not sure why. Something told him that bowing would be wrong. Valith studied him for a long moment. Her eyes were black like all Sithari, but there was something deeper in them. Intelligence, calculation, and something else that might have been curiosity. "You are the one called Park Do-hun," she said. Her voice was clear and strong, filling the chamber without effort. "I am." "Show me your arm." Do-hun unwrapped the bandage. The wound from yesterday was now just a pink line, raised and rough but closed. In another day, it would be a scar. In a week, it might disappear entirely. Valith stood from her throne and walked toward him. She moved with perfect grace, each step exact and balanced. She stopped in front of him and looked down at his arm. Then she touched it. Her fingers were cold and smooth. She traced the line of the healing wound, her black eyes fixed on the new skin. "This should not be possible," she said quietly. "It's just healing," Do-hun said. "Humans heal. We do not." Valith released his arm and stepped back. "We removed the need for healing long ago. Our bodies do not change, do not age, do not decay. We are perfect and eternal. But you can be hurt. Yes. And when we are hurt, we remain hurt until our technology repairs us. Our flesh does not repair itself. It cannot." She returned to her throne, but did not sit. She stood before it, looking at him with an expression he could not read. "You are chaos. Your body is a war zone of competing systems, of destruction and repair, of death and birth. You carry disease inside you. Your cells divide and die by the billions. You should be weak. You should be inferior." "But," Do-hun said, "but your body can do something that ours cannot. It can fight. It can adapt. It can heal." Valith's voice hardened. "And we need that ability, desperately." She gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. It showed a star map with dozens of systems marked in red. "The plague," Valith said. "It has spread to 43 of our worlds. 18 million Sithari have died. Our doctors cannot stop it. Our technology cannot cure it. Our perfect bodies have no defense because they have no ability to adapt." Do-hun stared at the map. 18 million dead. He had not known the Sithari could die in such numbers. They had always seemed invincible. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because you may be the solution." Valith waved the display away. "Your biology holds the secrets we need. Your immune system, your regeneration, your adaptation. If we can understand these things, we may be able to save our people. You want to study me?" "Yes." "And if I refuse?" Valith smiled. It was a cold smile, without warmth or humor. "Then I will take what I need from human colonies by force. We will harvest your kind by the thousands until we find what we are looking for. The choice is yours, but understand this. One way or another, we will have what we need." Do-hun felt anger rise in his chest. He pushed it down. Anger would not help here. Only thinking would help. "I want to talk to my captain," he said. "That can be arranged. And if I cooperate, what happens to my crew? If you give us what we need, you will all be released unharmed. I will establish peaceful contact with human authorities. No more will die. Do-hun looked into her black eyes, trying to see if she was lying. He could not tell. The Sithari did not show emotion the way humans did. "I need time to decide," he said. "You have until tomorrow. Then you will give me your answer." Valith sat on her throne. "Guards, take him to the medical bay. Healer Novus will begin preliminary examinations. He may as well be useful while he considers my offer." The guards led Do-hun out of the throne chamber. His mind was spinning with everything he had learned. The Sithari were dying. Their perfect biology had become a weakness, and they thought humans could save them. The medical bay was clean and white, filled with equipment that Do-hun did not recognize. Healer Novus was waiting for him. She was smaller than the other Sithari he had seen, her movements quicker and less formal. "Sit here," she said, gesturing to an examination table. "I will take some samples. Blood, tissue, nothing that will hurt." Do-hun sat. Novus moved around him, using instruments that hummed and glowed. She worked efficiently, but not roughly. "You seem different from the others," Do-hun said. Novus glanced at him. "Different how?" "The commander, the guards, the queen. They look at me like I'm a thing. You look at me like I'm interesting." A small smile crossed Novus's face. "You are interesting. Your biology is fascinating. I have studied hundreds of species, but I have never seen anything like human regeneration. It's not special to us. Everyone heals. That is what makes it special." Novus held up a vial of his blood, looking at it in the light. "To you, healing is normal, ordinary. You don't even think about it. But to us, it is a miracle. We gave up the ability to change long ago. We thought it was a flaw. And now you're dying because of it." Novus was quiet for a moment. "Yes. Is the Queen telling the truth? Will she really let us go if I help? The Queen keeps her word. If she makes a promise, she will honor it." Novus put the vial away and turned to face him. "But you should know that not everyone in the Dominion supports her plan. Commander Rathal believes humans are too dangerous to keep alive. He thinks we should simply take what we need and destroy you. That's not very encouraging. I am telling you the truth. You deserve to know what you are dealing with." Do-hun studied her face. She was hard to read like all Sithari, but he thought he saw something genuine there. Concern, maybe, or at least honesty. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. Novus considered the question. "Because I am a healer. My purpose is to preserve life, not destroy it. And because I believe the Queen is right, we cannot keep conquering and killing. It will not save us. Only understanding will save us." She turned back to her instruments. "Your crewmate, the translator, she speaks our language well. Yuna, she studied your culture for years. I would like her to assist with our work. Communication will be important." Do-hun nodded. "I'll ask her." He looked around the medical bay, at the alien technology, at the cold, clean surfaces. He was trapped on an enemy ship, surrounded by beings who could kill him with a word. His crew's lives depended on his decision. But for the first time since their capture, he felt a small spark of hope. Not all Sithari were the same. Novus was proof of that. And if there were others like her, maybe there was a way through this that didn't end in death. He would cooperate. He would help them understand human biology. And while he did, he would watch and learn and wait. The Sithari had lived for millions of years by being perfect and unchanging. Humans had survived by being the opposite. Maybe it was time to show them why that mattered. They met in a small room near the detention area. 2 guards stood at the door, watching with those empty black eyes. Yuna was there too, sitting quietly in the corner. The 3 of them were together for the first time since their capture. Taewon looked tired but unbroken. His gray hair was messy, his jaw covered in stubble, but his eyes were sharp and clear. Tell me everything, he said. Do-hun told him. The Queen's offer. The plague killing millions of Sithari. The promise of freedom if they cooperated, and the threat of harvesting human colonies if they refused. Tae-wan listened without interrupting. When Do-hun finished, the captain was quiet for a long time. So we have no choice, Tae-wan said finally. We always have a choice, but the other options are worse. If we help them, we might be giving an enemy empire the tools to become unstoppable. Do-hun nodded. He had thought about this too. Or we might be giving them a reason to stop being enemies. Yuna spoke up. Captain, I've been studying the Sithari for years. They're not evil. They're just different. They see the galaxy as a hierarchy, with themselves at the top. But if we can show them that other species have value, that might change things. Change a 3,000-year-old empire? Tae-wan shook his head. That's a big hope. It's the only hope we have, Do-hun said. We can't fight our way out. We can't run. The only move we have is to cooperate and see where it leads. Tae-wan looked at him for a long moment. Then he looked at Yuna. Both of them were waiting for his decision. He was the captain. This was his call. All right, he said. We cooperate, but carefully. We watch everything and trust nothing. And at the first sign of betrayal, we find another way. Do-hun nodded. Understood. The guards led Tae-wan back to his cell. Do-hun and Yuna were taken to the medical bay to begin their work with healer Novus. The next few days were strange and intense. Do-hun spent hours in the examination room, providing blood samples, tissue samples, letting Novus scan every part of his body. She was thorough and professional, explaining each procedure before she did it. Yuna served as translator when the technical language became too complex. Novus was fascinated by everything she found. Your blood, she said one day, holding up a display of his cells. It contains specialized cells that hunt and destroy invaders. They learn from each attack and remember for the future. Your body is constantly at war with the environment. We call it an immune system, Yuna said. We had something similar once, millions of years ago before we perfected ourselves. We removed it because it was unpredictable. Sometimes it made mistakes, attacked the body itself. We considered it a flaw. It is a flaw, Do-hun said. Sometimes it goes wrong, but most of the time it keeps us alive. Novus looked at him. You accept flaws in yourself? We don't have a choice. We're full of flaws. We just try to make them work for us instead of against us. Novus was quiet. Do-hun could see her thinking, processing this idea that was so different from everything she knew. As the days passed, Do-hun began to understand the Sithari better. They were not monsters. They were not cruel. They were simply logical to an extreme degree. They had removed everything from themselves that seemed inefficient or imperfect, not realizing that some imperfections were necessary for survival. They had made themselves eternal but static, immortal but fragile. They could not change, and in a changing galaxy, that was a death sentence. But not everyone in the Dominion was willing to accept that truth. Commander Rathal came to the medical bay on the 4th day. He stood in the doorway, his silver-marked armor gleaming, his black eyes fixed on Do-hun with obvious disgust. "This is wrong," he said to Novus. "These creatures should be in cells, not laboratories. They should be questioned and discarded, not studied and valued." "The Queen has given her orders," Novus said calmly. "The Queen is blinded by desperation. She sees hope where there is only contamination." Rathal stepped closer to Do-hun, looking down at him with contempt. "You think you are saving your people. You are only delaying the inevitable. When we have what we need from you, you will be destroyed. All humans will be destroyed. You are chaos. You are infection. You have no place in the perfect order." Do-hun met his gaze without flinching. "Is that what you told the queen?" "I have told her many times. She does not listen. But she will. When your usefulness ends, she will see clearly again." Rathal looked at Novus. "And you should be careful where your loyalties lie, healer. The commander's path may prove wiser than the queen's." He left. The room was silent. "He's planning something," Yuna said quietly. "Yes," Novus said. "He has many followers among the traditionalists. They believe any change to our biology is heresy." "What will you do if he moves against the queen?" Do-hun asked. Novus did not answer, but the look on her face said everything. She was afraid, not of Rathal, but of what would happen to her people if the traditionalists won. That night, Yuna came to Do-hun's cell. The guards allowed it because she was part of the medical team now. They sat on opposite sides of the energy barrier and talked in low voices. "Novus is on our side," Yuna said. "I'm sure of it. She doesn't want war. She wants her people to survive. But she's just one person, one healer. If Rathal has an army of traditionalists behind him, what can she do? She can convince the queen. If we can show Valeth that our way is better, that imperfection is strength, she might listen." Do-hun shook his head. "We're not going to convince a 3,000-year-old queen to change her whole worldview in a few days. Then we need to show her, not tell her. Show her something that proves our point beyond any doubt." "Like what?" Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she looked at him with determination. "Like you. You're living proof that chaos works, that imperfection survives. If the queen sees that clearly enough, she might understand." Do-hun thought about it. It was a risk, a huge risk. He would be putting himself in front of the most powerful being in the Dominion and telling her that everything she believed was wrong. But Yuna was right. Words would not change Valeth's mind. Only proof would do that. "All right," he said. "I'll talk to her. I'll make her understand." "When?" "Tomorrow, before Rathal makes his move. We're running out of time." Yuna reached through the barrier. It flickered, but allowed her hand to pass through for just a moment. She squeezed his fingers. "Be careful," she said. "I will." But Do-hun knew that careful wasn't going to save them. Only bold action would do that. He had to challenge the queen directly. He had to show her that strength wasn't what she thought it was. It was probably the stupidest thing he had ever done. But stupid had kept humans alive for a long time. Maybe it would work one more time. Novus looked at him like he had lost his mind. "You want to speak with her directly?" "About what?" "About why your cure isn't working. We haven't even finished the research. How can you know it's not working?" "Because you're looking in the wrong place." Do-hun met her eyes steadily. "You're trying to copy our biology without understanding our philosophy. It won't work. I need to explain this to her myself." Novus hesitated. "The queen does not like being told she is wrong." "I know, but she's running out of time, and so are we. Rathal is planning something. We all know it. If I don't get to her first, none of this will matter." Novus was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I will make the request. But if she kills you for your insolence, I will not be able to stop her. I understand." 2 hours later, Do-hun stood before the great door again. It opened, and he walked into the throne chamber alone. Queen Valeth was waiting. She sat on her throne, watching him approach with those ancient black eyes. The room felt even larger than before, the silence even deeper. "Healer Novus tells me you have something important to say," Valeth said. "Speak." Do-hun stopped at the same distance as before. He took a breath. This was it. Everything depended on the next few minutes. "Your Majesty," he said, I've been working with your healer for days. She's taken my blood, my tissue, studied every part of my biology. She understands how human healing works now, but she can't use it. Valith's eyes narrowed slightly. Explain. Your bodies rejected the initial tests. The human cells didn't take. They died within hours. Our scientists will find a way to solve that problem. No, they won't. Because the problem isn't technical. It's philosophical. The room went very still. Dohun could feel the weight of the Queen's attention pressing down on him like a physical force. You are speaking in riddles, Valith said. Explain clearly or leave. Dohun stepped forward. You want to copy our regeneration. You want to take the good parts of human biology and add them to your own. But you can't separate them from the bad parts. They're the same thing. What do you mean? Our immune system works because it's imperfect. It makes mistakes. Sometimes it attacks our own bodies. Sometimes it fails completely. But those failures are how it learns. Each generation inherits the victories of the last. We get sick and become stronger. We suffer and adapt. Dohun pointed at himself. My body isn't a perfect machine. It's a battlefield. Millions of tiny systems fighting each other constantly, destroying and rebuilding, dying and being born. It's messy and chaotic and painful. He looked directly into the Queen's eyes. And that's why it works. Valith stared at him. Her face was unreadable, but Dohun could feel something shifting in the room. The air felt different, charged. You are telling me that imperfection is the source of your strength, she said. Yes. That chaos is better than order. Not better, necessary. You can't have one without the other. Valith stood from her throne. She descended the steps slowly, her robes flowing behind her. She stopped directly in front of Dohun, close enough to touch. We removed these things from ourselves because they were weaknesses, she said. We suffered from disease, from age, from death. We eliminated them and became perfect, eternal, unchanging. And now you're dying anyway. Dohun did not back away. Not from disease or age, from stagnation. Your bodies can't change because you took away their ability to change. And when something new comes along, something your perfection never accounted for, you have no defense. The plague. Yes, and it won't be the last. There will always be something new. The galaxy doesn't stay still. It changes constantly, and anything that can't change with it will eventually die. Valith was silent. Dohun could see her processing his words, turning them over in her ancient mind. He pressed on. You conquered 1,000 worlds because you were strong. But you can't conquer a virus because strength isn't enough. You need flexibility, adaptation, the ability to be hurt and heal, to be broken and rebuild. He held up his arm, showing the scar from his wound. I'm not stronger than you. I'm not smarter or faster or better in any way. But I can survive things you can't. Because my body knows how to fail and recover. That's what you need to learn, not how to copy our cells, how to accept our philosophy. Valith raised her hand. For a moment, Dohun thought she was going to strike him. Instead, she touched his arm, tracing the scar with her cold fingers. You speak of accepting weakness, she said quietly, of embracing failure. These are concepts that contradict everything we have believed for millions of years. I know. You are asking me to tell my people that our entire civilization was built on a mistake. Yes. Many will refuse. Many will call it heresy. Commander Rathal already does. Valith looked up at him. You know of his objections. He made them clear. He thinks humans should be destroyed. He thinks change is contamination. He is not alone in those beliefs. But you're the queen. Your people are dying. You have to decide what matters more, your pride or their survival. It was the boldest thing Dohun had ever said. He half expected guards to rush in and drag him away. Instead, Valith simply stood there looking at him with those deep black eyes. "You are either very brave or very foolish," she said. "Maybe both." Something changed in her face. It was subtle, barely visible, but Do-hoon saw it. The tiniest crack in her ancient composure. "I will consider your words," she said. "Return to the medical bay and continue your work with Novus. Tell her to begin designing trials based on your theory. We will test whether imperfection can truly be reintroduced." Do-hoon nodded. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Do not thank me yet. If this fails, you and your crew will pay the price." She turned and walked back to her throne. The audience was over. Do-hoon left the chamber with his heart pounding. He had done it. He had actually made her listen. It wasn't a victory, not yet, but it was a start. He found Yuna and Novus waiting in the medical bay. Both of them looked nervous. "Well?" Yuna asked. "She's going to try it. She's going to test the theory." Novus let out a breath she had been holding. "That is unexpected and dangerous. If the trials fail, there will be consequences. And if they succeed?" Novus looked at him with something like hope. "Then everything changes." But even as they began planning the new trials, Do-hoon knew they were in a race. The Queen had listened, but Rathal had not. And somewhere on this ship, the commander was making plans of his own. The traditionalists would not let their perfect civilization be contaminated by human chaos without a fight. The question was whether the Queen would be ready when they came for her. Do-hoon was asleep in his cell when the alarms started. They were different from the ones on the horizon's edge, deeper and more urgent. Red lights flashed through the detention area. Guards ran past without looking at him. Yuna appeared at the barrier between their cells. Her face was pale. "Something's wrong. The guards just left. All of them." Do-hoon stood up. His instincts told him this was bad. Very bad. "Rathal." "He's making his move." The barrier between their cells flickered and died. The power was being cut. Do-hoon stepped through into Yuna's space, then looked at the main door. It was still locked. "We need to find the captain," Yuna said. "And the others. First we need to get out of here." Do-hoon looked around the cell. The walls were smooth and solid, but the door was a weak point. He found a metal bar that had been part of a bed frame and wedged it into the seam of the door. He pushed hard. The door groaned but didn't open. "Help me," he said. Yuna grabbed the bar with him. They pushed together. The door bent, then snapped open. The corridor outside was empty. Emergency lights glowed red along the floor. The ship felt wrong, off balance somehow. Do-hoon could hear distant sounds of fighting, energy weapons, explosions. The Sithari were at war with themselves. "This way," he said. They moved through the ship as quietly as they could. Do-hoon remembered some of the route from the medical bay. They found the other crew cells and freed Captain Taiwan and the rest of the team. 7 humans together again, armed with nothing but metal bars and determination. "What's the plan?" Taiwan asked. "We need to get to our ship," Do-hoon said. "If we can reach the horizon's edge, we can escape." "And just leave?" Do-hoon hesitated. He thought about Novus, about the Queen, about everything that was happening. If Rathal won this fight, the traditionalists would take over. They would destroy the humans and probably attack human space. Everything would be worse. But if the Queen won... "No," Do-hoon said. "We're not leaving. We need to help." Taiwan stared at him. "Help the Sithari? The ones who captured us?" "Help the Queen. If she loses, Rathal will kill us and everyone like us. If she wins, we might actually have a chance at peace." The captain looked at his crew. They were scared but steady. They had been through too much to break now. "All right," Taiwan said. "How do we help?" We find Novus. She'll know where the Queen is. They moved through the ship, avoiding the main corridors where the fighting was heaviest. Twice they had to hide as Sithari soldiers ran past. They couldn't tell which side the soldiers were on, so they stayed out of sight. The medical bay was empty when they arrived. Equipment was scattered across the floor, signs of a struggle. "She's not here," Yuna said. Dohun looked around. Something caught his eye. A small device on the floor, blinking with a blue light. A communicator. Novus must have dropped it during the attack. He picked it up and pressed the activation button. "Novus, can you hear me?" Static, then a voice. "Dohun, you're alive? Where are you?" "The Queen's chambers. Rathal's forces are attacking. We cannot hold much longer." Her voice was strained. "You should escape. Take your crew and go." "We're coming to help." "That is foolish. You will die." "Maybe. But you helped us. We owe you." There was a pause. Then Novus gave them directions to the Queen's chambers, through maintenance passages that would avoid most of the fighting. They moved fast. The sounds of battle grew louder as they got closer to the throne chamber. They passed bodies in the corridors, Sithari soldiers in black armor. Some wore silver marks like Rathal's forces. Others wore the unmarked armor of loyalists. The Civil War had split the ship in two. They reached a service door that led to the throne chamber. It was locked, but one of the crew engineers worked on the panel and got it open. Inside was chaos. The throne chamber was filled with fighting. Rathal's soldiers poured in from the main entrance, firing energy weapons at the defenders. Queen Valith stood near her throne, surrounded by a small group of loyal guards. Novus was with her, using a medical tool as an improvised weapon. The Queen was fighting. That surprised Dohun. He had thought of her as a ruler, not a warrior. But she moved with deadly grace, cutting down enemies with a blade that glowed with white energy. She was ancient and terrible and beautiful, but she was outnumbered. Her defenders were falling one by one. It was only a matter of time. "We need to get to them," Dohun said. "Draw some of the attackers away." "How?" Taewon asked. Dohun picked up a fallen weapon from a dead soldier. It felt strange in his hands, too light and perfectly balanced. He had no idea how to use it properly. "Make noise," he said. "Cause confusion. They don't know how many of us there are." They spread out and attacked from the flank. 7 humans with stolen weapons and metal bars, screaming as they charged into the fight. It shouldn't have worked. They were outnumbered and outmatched. But the surprise was total. Rathal's soldiers turned to face this new threat, confused by these primitive creatures who should have been in cells. That moment of confusion was enough. Valith saw the opening and struck. She led her remaining guards in a counterattack, pushing through the distracted enemy line. Dohun fought alongside them, swinging his weapon more like a club than a rifle. He took hits that should have put him down, but he kept moving. His body screamed with pain, but pain was just information. He had learned that long ago. He reached Novus and put himself between her and an attacking soldier. The soldier's blade caught him across the chest, cutting deep. Blood poured out. Dohun fell to his knees, but he didn't stay down. He grabbed the soldier's leg and pulled him off balance. Another loyalist finished the enemy with a blade through the chest. Dohun struggled back to his feet, one hand pressed against his wound. Queen Valith saw him. She saw the wound and the blood and the human who refused to die. Something changed in her face. "Fall back," she commanded. "To the inner chambers." The loyalists retreated through a door behind the throne. Dohun staggered with them, supported by Yuna. They made it through just before the door sealed. The inner chamber was smaller and defensible. Valith's remaining forces set up positions at the door. The fighting paused for a moment. Novus rushed to Dohun. "You're badly hurt." "I'll live." He looked down at his chest. The wound was deep but not fatal. Already his body was working to close it, to stop the bleeding, to begin the long process of repair. Queen Valith walked over. She stood above him, looking down at the blood soaking through his clothes. "You came back," she said. "You could have escaped." "Why?" Dohun looked up at her. "Because some things are worth fighting for, even imperfect things." The queen stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once, a gesture of respect. "Healer," she said to Novus, "do what you can for him. He has earned our care." She turned to face the door. Rathal's forces were regrouping. The final battle was coming. But now the queen had something she hadn't had before. She had allies. Imperfect, chaotic, stubborn human allies. And maybe that would be enough. The door to the inner chamber shook with each impact. Rathal's forces were using heavy weapons now, trying to blast their way through. It would not hold much longer. Queen Valith stood at the center of the room, calm and steady. Her remaining guards formed a defensive line. The human crew stood with them, battered and bleeding, but still on their feet. Dohun sat against the wall, Novus working on his wound. She had sealed the worst of it with a medical device. But he had lost a lot of blood. His vision swam in and out of focus. "Stay awake," Novus told him. "If you fall unconscious, your body may not wake up." "I'm fine," he said. But he wasn't fine. He was holding on by pure will. The door buckled. One more hit and it would fall. Valith turned to her guards. "When they come through, we hold this position as long as we can. No retreat, no surrender." "My queen," one of the guards said, "we should evacuate you to the escape pods. Save yourself and rebuild." "No, I will not run from traitors." Valith's voice was iron. "I have ruled for 3,000 years. If my reign ends here, it ends with me facing my enemies, not fleeing from them." The door exploded inward. Rathal's soldiers poured through, firing as they came. The loyalists fired back. The room became a storm of energy blasts and screaming. Dohun pushed himself up. His body protested, every wound crying out for him to stop. He didn't stop. He grabbed a weapon from a fallen soldier and joined the fight. He moved on instinct, on training he thought he had forgotten. Years as a combat medic came back. He had spent that time saving lives, but he had also learned how to take them when necessary. He fired and ducked and fired again, dropping enemies with shots that weren't pretty but were effective. Captain Taiwan fought beside him. The old captain moved like a man half his age, driven by fury and determination. Yuna and the others did what they could, adding to the chaos. But they were losing. For every enemy they killed, 2 more came through the door. The loyalists fell one by one. Soon, there were only a handful left. Then Commander Rathal entered the room. He walked through the battle like he was taking a stroll. His silver-marked armor glowed with energy shields that deflected every shot. He moved straight toward Queen Valith, his blade drawn. "It ends now, my queen," he said. "Your weakness has doomed us. I will save our people by removing you and your human contamination." Valith raised her blade. "You will try." They fought. It was the fastest, most violent thing Dohun had ever seen. 2 ancient Sithari, thousands of years of combat experience, moving almost too fast to follow. Their blades clashed and sparked. They spun and struck and blocked. Valith was skilled, but Rathal was stronger. He drove her back step by step. His blade cut through her defense, slicing her arm. She stumbled. He raised his weapon for the killing blow. Dohun didn't think. He just moved. He threw himself between Rathal and the queen. The commander's blade came down and cut across Dohun's back, a wound that should have killed him instantly. He didn't die. He turned and grabbed Rathal's weapon arm. His grip was weak, but desperate. He held on with everything he had. Rathal looked at him with disgust. "Foolish creature. You should be dead." "I know," Dohun said through gritted teeth. "But I'm not." Rathal tried to shake him off. Do-Hoon held on. His body was failing, his vision going dark, but he held on. Queen Valith rose behind him. Her wound was nothing to a Sithari. She moved while Rathal was distracted, while his arm was trapped. Her blade went through his chest. Rathal looked down at the wound. He looked at Valith. He looked at Do-Hoon. Chaos, he whispered. He fell. Without their leader, the coup collapsed. The remaining traditionalists surrendered or fled. It was over in minutes. Do-Hoon fell too. The last of his strength gone. He lay on the floor of the throne chamber, bleeding from wounds that would kill any normal person. Novus rushed to him. She worked frantically, using every tool and technique she had. Yuna knelt beside her, holding Do-Hoon's hand. "Stay with us," Yuna said. Her voice was breaking. "Please, stay with us." Do-Hoon couldn't speak. He could barely see. But he felt something. His body, that chaotic battlefield of systems and cells, was fighting. Even now, even this damaged, it was trying to heal, trying to survive. That was what humans did. They survived. The darkness closed in. The last thing he saw was Yuna's face above him, tears falling. Then nothing. He woke 3 days later. He was in the medical bay, lying on a bed surrounded by machines. Yuna was asleep in a chair beside him. Novus stood nearby, checking readings on a display. "You're awake," Novus said. There was something in her voice, something that sounded almost like emotion. "What happened?" Do-Hoon's voice was rough. His body felt like it had been torn apart and put back together, which, he supposed, it had. "You almost died, 3 times. Your heart stopped twice, but your body kept fighting." Novus looked at him with wonder. "I have never seen anything like it. You should not have survived. No Sithari could have survived those wounds, but your systems refused to stop." Yuna stirred awake. When she saw Do-Hoon's eyes open, she burst into tears and threw her arms around him. It hurt like hell. He didn't care. "The others?" he asked. "All alive. Some injured but recovering." Yuna pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Captain Taiwan is already demanding to see you." "And the Queen?" Novus answered. "She has restored order on the ship. The coup failed. The traditionalists have been arrested or scattered. Her rule is secure." Do-Hoon nodded slowly. It was good news. Better than he had expected. "What happens now?" he asked. "The Queen wishes to speak with you. When you are strong enough." It took another 2 days before Do-Hoon could walk. Yuna helped him to the throne chamber. He entered alone, moving slowly but steadily. Queen Valith was waiting. She stood near the viewport, looking out at the stars. She turned when he entered. "Park Do-Hoon," she said. "You nearly died for me. I nearly died for a lot of reasons." A hint of a smile crossed her face. "You are impertinent for a prisoner." "Am I still a prisoner?" She walked toward him. "No. You and your crew will be released as I promised. A ship will take you back to human space." "And the deal? The cooperation?" "It will continue. Healer Novus will lead a project to reintroduce adaptability into our biology. It will take generations, but we will try." She stopped in front of him. "You were right. Our perfection became our weakness. We must learn to accept imperfection if we are to survive." Do-Hoon felt something loosen in his chest. It had worked. Against all odds, it had actually worked. "Will your people accept it?" he asked. "Some will, some will not. Change is difficult for a species that has not changed in millions of years." She looked at him closely. "Will humans ever trust us?" "Not yet," Do-Hoon said honestly. "You've conquered a lot of worlds, killed a lot of people. That doesn't go away quickly. Then what hope is there? You're learning to change. That's a start. It'll be messy, imperfect, but that's how real things work." Valith was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps the chaos is the point. She extended her hand. A human gesture. She must have learned it from Yuna. Do-hoon shook it. Her grip was cold and firm. Goodbye, Park Do-hoon. May your imperfections serve you well. May yours serve you better. 3 days later, the horizon's edge jumped to hyperspace. Do-hoon stood at the viewport, watching the Sithari flagship shrink and disappear. Yuna stood beside him. Do you think it will last? She asked. The peace? Do-hoon thought about Vaylith and Novus, about Rathal and the traditionalists, about all the challenges that lay ahead. It'll be messy, he said, imperfect, full of problems and setbacks. That sounds bad? No. He smiled slightly. That's how we know it's real. The stars stretched into lines as the ship jumped. They were going home. Behind them, something new was beginning, fragile and uncertain, but alive, just like everything worth keeping.